Recently, Sweden's government posted this on their website. Claim: there's been a major increase in the number of rapes in Sweden, to which the government replies, the number of reported rapes in Sweden has risen, but the definition of rape has broadened over time, which makes it difficult to compare the figures. It is also misleading to compare the figures with other countries, as many acts that are considered rape under Swedish law are not considered rape in many other countries. Well, sex crimes have doubled since 2012, and the legal definition of rape isn't relevant here, because the source of these figures is the Crime Council's safety survey. They are generally considered more reliable than reports to the police, and this also means that factors like the definition of rape widening and taking time to apply in court doesn't matter. Asking citizens what they've experienced and looking at people who dared to report are two very different things. And according to safety survey numbers, women's comfortability with reporting sex crime has actually gone down, not up. Now this is an important detail, since this is often used as the #1 theory to explain why there's been an increase. And from 2005 to 2010, women did feel more comfortable reporting sex crime, but since 2010, it's been going down. Now, in order to understand the effect that immigration has on crime and rape, we need data. Obtaining that data is easy in other countries, but not in Sweden. The latest official report was in 2005, for the years 1997 to 2001. It confirmed that immigrants were significantly overrepresented. 4 times more likely to be suspects in homicide cases, and 5.5 times more likely to be suspects of rape. Since then, Swedish politicians have made sure not to release any more statistics. The numbers are being collected by statistical agencies, but they're not being published. Parliament even denied a motion to produce up-to-date crime statistics based on national origin. If we look at neighboring countries, we might find an explanation there. In 2009, Norwegian police reported that non-Western immigrants were responsible for all assault rapes in Oslo for the past 3 years. We're talking about 41 reports. In the third largest city of Stavanger, 2012, 90% of rapes were by non-natives. That's 20 convictions. Now those might be small numbers, but the official police report from 2011 confirms the trend. Here we can see perpetrator representation according to age and ethnic background. The bluish color represents non-Norwegians. And as you can see here, 61.2% of rapists were Norwegians, 10.5% were from Africa, 9.2% were from the Middle East, 12.5% were Europeans, 4.6% were Asians, and 2.0% were Americans. I like to point out that Asian doesn't just mean Chinese and Japanese, it can also refer to Pakistanis and Afghans. Considering that Southeast Asians have the lowest registered crime, it is likely not predominantly Japanese and Chinese people here. Now, notice that Norwegian citizen includes people with immigrant backgrounds as well. It is not just ethnic Norwegians that are Norwegian citizens. If we break it up according to continental background, then the numbers are as following. 34.9% of rapists were Norwegians, 19.7% were from Africa, 15.1% from the Middle East, 14.5% from Asia, 13.8% from Europe, and 2.0% from America. Considering that immigrants make out a minority in Norway, these numbers are remarkable. I managed to come across a police report from 2015 as well, showing that immigrants commit a disproportionate amount of rapes. 25% of reported rapes that year were by non-European immigrants. The largest immigrant population in Norway is Polish, followed by Lithuanians and Swedes. That's saying something. 82% of victims were born in Norway. Ethnic Norwegians make out 83.7% of the population as of 2016. Looking at these stats, you can do some quick math and realize that Africans make out 1.6% of the entire population. If you add Asians, that's 5.4%. And together, they account for roughly 25% of all rapes in the entire country. That's not a small overrepresentation. This gives an indication to why the government isn't interested in updating the report from 2005. Nobody is disputing the fact that Swedish people commit crimes. The issue here is how disproportionately overrepresented certain immigrant groups are. Individuals from North Africa and the Middle East have the highest registered crime. Western Europeans, Southeast Asians, and Americans have the lowest registered crime. On the government's website, they claim that in a later study, researchers at Stockholm University show that the main difference in terms of criminal activity between immigrants and others in the population was due to differences in socio-economical conditions in which they grew up in Sweden. And yet, the official report from 2005 clearly states on page 21 that the overrepresentation remains even after controlling for these factors. Claiming that poverty is the cause of rape is really offensive to all women who've been raped by middle-class men. The big question here is, if we already have a rape problem with ethnic Swedes, why make it even worse through the import of more rape? The majority of immigrants don't rape, so they wouldn't suffer from in-depth research into this overrepresentation. They wouldn't suffer from people looking at what can be done to improve screening of potential criminals. I mean, what kind of an outlook do you have on immigrants if you think that this type of research would be somehow offensive to immigrants? Do you know the best way to tell that the government is being dishonest? If immigrants weren't severely overrepresented, they would love to release those numbers because it would put an end to all speculation. It would remove all the appeal of far-right populist parties and their rhetoric. Put simply, it would be the ultimate argument against people like Donald Trump. But instead, you're just fueling far-right populism with your lack of transparency.